presenting the welcome speech amongst the most esteemed personalities who have won accolades in their respective fields, Dr. Assisi Menacheri and Dr. Giselle George. Before we begin this webinar, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all the viewers for joining hands with us to make this webinar a successful one. Webinars are organized and conducted by Parul University to the general audience to gain insight and information that would remain effective in their discussion. For today's webinar was chosen keeping in mind the interest of the youth. I would like to introduce our guests. Dr. Assisi Menacheria. Dr. Menacheria serves as the Vice President at QMPG Industrial Certifications and Services. He has demonstrated excellence in multiple areas. His mantra is love whatever you do and enjoy the process. He is excited about whatever he does. He was a top performing sales professional in India and one among the top 50 in the world, earning multiple international awards consecutively for 3 years from US and Europe. He has conducted more than 1,150 third-party audits in 25 plus sectors in the areas of quality, environment, food safety, health and safety, and social accountability that includes manufacture of nuclear-grade uranium. He is also a certified Lean Six Sigma Black Belt. He has conducted 97 third-party audits in the area of K-12, higher education, non-formal education, training and knowledge management in 3 countries. He also served as the Director of Hycon India Limited, Director and CEO of Horsch Remedies Limited, and Director Marketing of Zeba Lab Furnishing Private Limited. He has consulted and conducted trainings in more than 350 organizations during the past 18 years. He is an alumnus of IIM Ahmedabad for the full-time FDPM program, VSMED, Bharatiyar University and University of Madras. He is trained in physics, applied in clinical psychology, HRM, HRD, management, marketing, and enterprise risk management with an earned PhD in the area of emotional intelligence and managerial effectiveness. He is an astute practitioner of Sahaj Mark, a method of Raj Yoga or mindfulness practice for past 30 years. He is the author of 9 books and one is translated to European languages, 9 European languages. He has worked as an associate professor, and dean at multiple management schools. His latest 2 books, the core focus is in the area of mindfulness. He has conducted a meta-analysis of wisdom literatures of Oriental, Eastern, and Western literatures using thematic analysis and working on his 10th book on mindfulness named as Essence of Excellence. He has traveled to US, Europe, Canada, Middle East, and Far East to attend and present papers in international conferences. He has published 28 articles in peer-reviewed journals of repute. On behalf of Faculty of Commerce, Parul University, I welcome you, sir. Now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Giselle George. She is the wife of Dr. Menacheria, completed her graduation in education and mathematics and post-graduation in mathematics and business administration. She came out as a topper for KAU MAT entrance test with the Federal Bank Hormuz Terrapin Scholarship for doing her MBA APM covering full fees. Later, she successfully completed her doctoral studies in an area, employee engagement, role of spiritual intelligence and knowledge management. Presently, she is working as a faculty in the area of quantitative techniques and organizational psychology. She is an author of 4 books, half a dozen research papers, and attended or presented papers in international conferences in Switzerland, India, and Malaysia. She is working on her next book, The 7 Spiritual Laws to Face Failures. I welcome you, ma'am. Part 1 of this webinar was graced with positive feedbacks from students and other migrants. I ensure the second part of the webinar will be profitable and fruitful for everyone present here. Before I invite our speaker to address all of you, let's have a quick recap of part 1 of the webinar. The first session commenced with a video to kindle interest on mindfulness. We discussed about the basic concepts of mindfulness and concluded that mindfulness means to be conscious and to be aware. Consciousness and awareness are the 2 words often used interchangeably about mindfulness. We discussed about the transactional levels of learning, briefed about the cycle of aptitude or competence in livelihood. We also gave a skill building session using a psychometric inventory. Further, we discussed about the existential or absolute levels of learning. Moreover, we gave a skill transfer session to experience what is existence by asking questions related to present, past, and future. We discussed about 5 C's of scarcity mentality and how human beings are conditioned to demonstrate scarcity mentality and about its relationship with learning. The 5 C's are following: competition, complaint, criticism, comparison, and contention. Further, we gave an introductory note on SQ3R and suggested to do as an exercise. I now request Dr. Giselle George, ma'am, to take the charge of the session.
Good afternoon, all. Well, Madam Shreya has rightly mentioned in her recap about SQ3R learning. Now, let me ask you, how many of you have done the assignment which was given in the last session? Can you please write your names in the comment box? I'll wait for a few seconds. Please write those who have done the assignment, their names in the comment box. Well, I can see only a few names there. That's fine. I may tell you, this is a challenge faced by most of the teachers and even the learners too. Now, let me start the session by explaining about the experiential learning. To learn a skill or a competence, we need to practice it. Unless and until one keeps doing again and again, he cannot master a skill. Let us look at a toddler. How does he start walking? It is not in a day or two he started walking. The baby first tries to stand with the help of a support. Then he stands without a support. Then start to take a few steps by holding his mother's hand or someone else's. Once he is confident enough, he tries to take a few more steps without any support. And all of you pretty well know that each and every step the baby takes, he might have fallen many a times. He might have got small aches or wounds. But he is determined. He wants to walk. He try, and for n number of times he will try. And at last, he wins. He starts to walk by himself without any support. Thus, the baby learns the skill of walking. The baby has transformed into a new human being with a new learned skill called walking. So, the point here I want to emphasize is that it is practice that matters in skill building. It is practice that makes you a new human being through an experience. Well, if someone wants to be competent in doing problems of accounting or mathematics, or someone wanted to be a sprint runner like Usain Bolt or Carl Lewis, or someone wants to be a master in cooking, he has no doubt to practice and practice and practice endless number of times, thus mastering a new skill through experience. Experience or practice transform individuals. Once the experience has happened, he becomes a new human being. Now, take the case of a boy and a girl. The moment they get married, the status of being a bachelor comes to an end. Now they are married individuals. Once they went through the experience of marriage, they are no longer a bachelor. The experience, marriage, has transformed them into new individuals called married couple. There is no going back into their previous status called bachelor. And they cannot undo marriage. Only they can divorce and get separated. But even then, they cannot become a bachelor. There can be only a divorcee who once went through the experience of marriage. Thus, experience brings about an absolute transformation in individuals where there is no going back, whereas theoretical knowledge won't bring a transformation in individuals. Let me give you a few more instances. After learning how to ride a horse or how to swim, an individual has transformed into a new one who now knows how to ride a horse or how to swim. Thus, an experience or a practice or doing an action transforms or renews an individual. This transformation or renewal cannot happen with cognitive learning, and that's why we say that experiential learning is absolute. Now let me try to give you an insight about SQ3R learning. I doubt some of you might be practicing it without knowing that they are following a scientific method of learning. It is a cognitive learning method consisting of 5 stages or steps. They are S for survey, Q for question, the first R represents read, and the second one recite or retrieve, and the final R represents review. It was introduced by Francis P. Robinson, who was an American education philosopher. This method tries to convert comprehensive cognitive learning to activity-oriented learning, and it introduces 5 stages for learning to limit passive learning. This method of learning promotes active learning through activities. The first step in this method of learning is to survey. See, every learner has the tendency just to read the material he has given to learn, which means the learner is involved in passive learning only. The learner should resist this temptation or this tendency to read the paragraph or chapter. Instead, he must go through and note down major themes, sub-themes, and information in the form of tables, graphs, and figures. This will provide the learner with an outline or framework of what is to be learned. Also, the learner identify ideas and formulate questions about the content. Let's try to skim and survey the following paragraph, and the paragraph reads as follows. To be mindful means to be aware and to be conscious. The word awareness and consciousness are used interchangeably to explain about mindfulness. Mindfulness, which is happening at the psychological level, includes knowing one's own interest and the learner's likes towards what is being learned. Whether the learner love or like the subject. It's like how far one love and like the subject that he or she learn. If he or she likes or loves, what is the reason, and so on. Further, mindfulness at the psychological level is whether learner is competent enough to learn the subject and whether do he or she have the aptitude. It's like what is the rigor of the course, what is the IQ requirement to learn the subject, does the learner have any basic background knowledge about the subjects, and so on. Next comes which program the learner wants to study and what are its opportunities, and whether the job or the program it offers after its completion has got any challenges, or is there any associated occupational health and safety hazards. By opportunities we mean whether the learning provides him or her adequate job opportunities so that he can earn his livelihood. We will learn later in the program that the object of learning is appropriate functioning, as advocated by Dr. Alport, a famous American psychologist, that whether the learner can express him or herself in a unique way to the fullest. Finally, whether the learner is aware one has to meet with any challenges while expressing oneself. There are many types of challenges such as ethical challenges, confusion, anxiety, inability to unlearn, challenges while working with a team, and so on. So that is the paragraph all about. After reading this paragraph and doing survey, the learner might note down the following themes and sub-themes, and I have done it for you. The first theme happens to be mindfulness, and the second theme is about the meaning of mindfulness at the psychological level. And under this main theme, there are some sub-themes coming, and they are the interest and learner's love or like towards learning, aptitude and competence to learn, opportunities after learning, possibilities for job after learning, and possible challenges the learner has to face. And the next main theme is object of learning. And there is a sub-theme coming under this main theme, that is appropriate functioning, expressing oneself in a unique way to the fullest. And theme 4 is about the challenges in expressing oneself. And there is a sub-theme, that is the ethical challenges, confusion, anxiety, inability to unlearn, etc. Now we move on to our next step, that is question. Based on the previous step, that is survey, the learner now has to generate questions. Here the learner can convert the themes and sub-themes or the headings or subheadings into questions. He can find the answers to these questions from the content itself, thus engaging the learner in active learning. The learner may also go for other general questions such as, what is this paragraph or chapter about? What question is this chapter trying to answer? How does this information help me? And based on the paragraph that we have already read, the questions can be generated as follows. What is mindfulness? What is mindfulness at the psychological level? What is appropriate functioning? What are the challenges while expressing oneself? What are the 5 perspectives of mindfulness at the psychological levels? Now the third step, which is named as read. You might be remembering our first step, that is survey. There the learner was surveying the given content in a passive mode only. But in this step, that is read, the learner starts to read the content actively by keeping in mind the work done with the step survey, that is S, and question, that is Q. While engaging in active reading, the learner is trying to get answers to the questions he generated in the previous step. The second R refers to retrieve or recite. The learner here retrieves or recite from his memory in a manner how he would teach another person, or how he would try to make another person understand about the information which he has learned in his own words. The learner here tries to recall from his memory. So, the listeners, please try to recall and identify the major points, that is the themes and sub-themes and answers to the questions which we have generated in the step Q. Now let me bring to your attention about an interesting graph called the forgetting curve. It tells about the amount of time you will be able to remember what you have learned, or it shows in how much time will an information that you have learned will be forgotten. For a learner who has learned about an information for the first time, he will forget the entire thing just within 3 days. But if he reviews it once, it will remain in his memory for a week. After a week's time, the learner will forget about what he has learned. If the learner repeatedly reviews, there is every chance that the learned information getting transferred to his long-term memory and he will be in a position to better recall it at any time. So why don't we review? Thus our final R is review. Once a learner reaches the end of the passage, review the material by repeating back to oneself in his own words. You may then repeat the process of reviewing, and the same process is repeated, enabling the learner to transform the information he has learned from short-term memory to long-term memory.
Professor Shreya, I hope you can hear me well, right? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, you're audible.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we will continue where Dr. Giselle has talked in one of her previous slide, that is existential or experiential learning. Now, if you observe, the way we take forward this particular training program is, well, we started with transactional levels of learning where there is a give and take. Then we forwarded it into existential or experiential learning, and our thrust was on to provide a skill building session, and we have already completed 3 skills. Now, during a period of past 40 minutes, we have transferred a skill. First, the skill was to know thyself about our own interest and authenticity to learn by using a questionnaire or inventory. The second skill was to realize what is existence in the now, here and now. And third one was specifically focusing on the age group of 8th standard to a master level or even up to the level of PhD, where SQ3R learning is very much important, where whenever we learn using those activity-based stages when being applied in cognitive learning, you forget the time, you don't get bored. Usually, an individual has 21 minutes attention span once you learn theory. And after reading that, we may get bored. But when we do this as SQ3R, then we do it as an activity, as an experience the learning process go through, where the passive learning transforms to active learning. So this is where we are now.
Well, let's learn something about existential or experiential learning. Experiential learning is transformational in nature because an individual becomes a new human being with that experience or gaining from that experience. As Dr. Giselle clearly mentioned, when someone get married, the couple becomes new and the old phase, the old pattern falls down and the new one emerges out. When two bachelors marry, they become a couple. They are no more a bachelor again. The old phase has fallen down and they have emerged, renewed to be a couple. And there is no going back. There is no going back. That is the most important point that we need to understand. Well, if they don't want to go together, they can divorce, right? Then they are divorcees. They are not unmarried people. So this is the speciality of experience. Once you learn swimming, you have gained a new skill and you renewed yourself and you become a new person. And there is no going back. You cannot unskill swimming. Please understand. So, when you gain experience, you get renewed. When you go through experience, you may not. So gaining experience is the renewal stages of learning. That is absolute and truly existential because that skill will exist with you till the end of your life. Please understand, unless and until you practice something, say chess or shooting or yoga, you cannot be transformed. So you are practicing yoga and you don't practice it, you learn in the book. Then you are a book yogi. There is no transformation. At the level of knowledge, you know what is yoga, what are the different steps, but you have not gone through the practice. So transformation has not happened. Please understand. Take anything like horse riding or swimming, an entrepreneurship. Let's say you commenced a new business. Okay? You are running a new business now. That entrepreneurship has transformed you to an entrepreneur, and you've gone through the process. You've gone through the pain and pleasure. You gained the skill to be an entrepreneur. That experience has transformed you to a new person, and there is no going back. This is the most important thing. So, let us say you want to be a chartered accountant or you want to learn mathematics. In order to transform, you have to practice the problems and solve the problems. Without solving, you cannot go through the experience. So you have a P&L account, you have a balance sheet, you have to tally it. So in order to do that, you have to work on the problem. You cannot bug up. You have to go through it, you have to solve the problem where you will gain the skill of solving it. Then you get renewed. Then you become very competent. So you would have seen that Shah Rukh Khan's movie where Shah Rukh Khan is being rented. His boss rents him because his boss is a very big businessman. He don't have the time to express love to his girlfriend. So he rents Shah Rukh Khan, and for boss, Shah Rukh Khan express love to girlfriend. So he carry a flower and give it to her, and he spend time with her for his friend in a very cordial and a gentle way, not in a vulgar way. Like, don't think in that way. But at the end of the film, what happens is this girl marries Shah Rukh Khan, not his boss. So why? See, experience, you have to own it and you have to go through the process. No one can do activity for you. You yourself has to do it. You have to live your life. Your father or your mother cannot live it for you. You have to brush your teeth. Maybe to model how to brush, your father or mother once in a while may help you to do that, to demonstrate it. But after that, you have to go through the process. Then only you will gain it. So our life, it is your life, it is my life. I have to live, I have to go through the pain, and that are the true renewal stages of experiential learning. Please understand that. So if you don't own the process, you cannot grow. Owning the process and going through the process and enjoying the process is what it is called as experiential. That is absolute. And you may be able to learn from others' experience. In quality or in Six Sigma, there is a concept called as preventive action. An action that you take in order to avoid the occurrence of a problem is preventive action. Okay, so when you observe that another person made a mistake, you can learn from that mistake and you can take a preventive action so that that mistake doesn't occur to you. So this is called as extension of a corrective action becomes a preventive action for you. Correct? Extension of a corrective action of the other person becomes a preventive action for you. But you can learn from others' mistakes, okay? But in order to you to practice it in your life, you have to go through the process and you have to experience it. Please understand. So others' experience is only a borrowed experience. It is not yours. Please keep this in mind always. It's very, very important. Now, let's go through learning, unlearning, and relearning from an experiential and behavioral perspective. This is altogether a totally different perspective of existential learning. It was, in fact, Dr. Pavlov, a great behavioral scientist, who came up with this theory called as classical conditioning when he worked or when he was doing research about gastric juices formed in stomach. Okay, what he did was very interesting. So Dr. Pavlov and team took 3 decades to formulate a theory on behavioral learning. What is that? Let's try to understand about it. Okay, so what he did was, On a particular day, he rang bell and fed one of his dog food. So he rang bell. After ringing bell, he fed the dog food. So he continued it for several times, many a times. Now let us observe what changes happened. Okay. So on a particular time, he rang the bell, but no food was served. But dog continued salivating. So from this, he identified that all behaviors are learned from own experience, exposure, whether good or bad, desirable or undesirable, adaptive or maladaptive. Please understand this. All behaviors are learned from own experience, including neurotic, emotionally unstable, or borderline personality behaviors. So, the positive aspect is that if all behaviors are learned, it is also possible to unlearn the behavior. So, one of the major input of Pavlov is the unlearning side. So, let's get into the experiment. What he did was he again rang bell, but he stopped providing food where no food was provided. But after a few times, dog also stopped the salivation. So he demonstrated that all learned behaviors can also be unlearned, extincted or stopped, but maybe gradually. There are several techniques. The one is changing the environment or strengthen the cognition, the thought process or positive thinking are the required resources. So unlearning is definitely possible. Whatever being learned in the past, because one individual is exposed, can be unlearned is something very positive. But what are the challenges? See, what Pavlov did is, after some time, he rang the bell, but he stopped serving food. Then again he started serving food. So once or twice only. The most important point is once or twice. Now the third time dog began salivating. So initially food was served, then he stopped serving food, then again food was served. Third time, spontaneously the saliva started coming from dog's mouth. So the challenges to unlearn is spontaneous recovery of the learned behavior. Think about someone who learns a behavior called as consuming alcohol, and he want to stop consuming alcohol, or otherwise he want to unlearn the behavior. Not only he himself, his family also want him to unlearn the behavior, and he was taken to a hospital, to a de-addiction camp. As well, he was taken to a prayer therapy or a retreat, where once all these interventions was over, he stops consuming alcohol. So the unlearning happens. However, whenever he meet his old friends, or whenever he was exposed to the old environment, he again consume. So this is one of the challenge to unlearn a behavior, that is spontaneous recovery of a learned behavior. The major threat in learning the behavior is the spontaneous recovery part. There are many other challenges also. It is called as generalization. So it is another threat. To justify same behavior, we find some reason or a defense. A student who does not study, blew hot and cold in anger, he may find out a lot of reasons. It could be, alarm didn't ring today, so the power went off. So one of my friend telephoned me and I was communicating to her. It could be anything. So now any such stimuli that elicit the behavior, and he or she find out a generalized reason. Okay, so perhaps a person who consumes alcohol, he would say that today I had a negative experience and I was sad. One of my friends passed away, so I consumed alcohol. And the same person would say, today I had a lot of happiness, it was my daughter's birthday, so I consumed alcohol. So generalization is another challenge to unlearn. And beyond that, okay, what is the great solution? The great solution is that anyone is capable of discriminating between good and bad, and those people will be successful in his life. For example, whenever we see a red signal, okay, in our traffic light, so what do? We stop. Okay, why? So we do have the power to discriminate. Okay, so this is very much applicable in the case of smoking, drinking, upskilling, etc., etc. We need to have the power to discriminate between good and bad. Okay, so I would like to add two more behavioral learning perspectives of two other people. The first gentleman's name is Skinner. You would have heard about him. You would have heard about the pigeon in a particular small cage, where the pigeon was introduced to food as well as mild electric shock. He told the positive actions could be promoted and negative to be punished. So he put a hungry pigeon in a box, having devices to attract it to some lever, and when touched, the lever delivers some food. That is H. Similarly, the pigeon repeats the action of pressing it whenever it is hungry. K, that provide mild electric shock, where the pigeon stop repeating the behavior. So the positive behaviors are promoted and negative behaviors are punished. So while doing this, the learning and unlearning happens. Similarly, Albert Bandura, in his social learning theory, also introduced the concepts of behavioral learning, where he discussed about three elements. The first one is external stimulus, the second one is external reinforcement, and most importantly, the cognitive mediation process. For example, food is an external stimulus for you to eat it and stay healthy. Sex is another external stimulus. Okay, so similarly, okay, there is an external stimulus for everything, and when you do that, there is an external reinforcement, something like applause. Okay, and your cognitive mediation process, okay, it means your internal thought process that gives a meaning to this particular external stimulus and reinforcement. Okay, and your behavior is depending on that, how you interact with these three elements. So psychological functioning involves a reciprocal interaction among three interlocking set of influences, such as behavior, cognitive process, and environmental factors. These are three elements that Dr. Albert Bandura put forward in his social cognitive theory, or also called as social learning theory. So, from a behavioral perspective, from an experiential perspective, from an existential perspective, okay, there are three basic methodologies. One is classical conditioning. The second one is operant conditioning put forward by Skinner, where positive actions are promoted and negatives are punished. And Albert Bandura, according to him, 5 interventions can be used by social psychologists called as live modeling, symbolic modeling, role playing, participant modeling, and code modeling to relearn new behaviors. There are 3 stages here. The first one is learning, then you have to unlearn it and relearning new behaviors from the perspectives of social learning theory. So the first live modeling is you to demonstrate, express, and involve in the real life. And symbolic is you observe videotaped or picture. And role playing is a third one, where imitation of modeled behaviors are being done. Then participant modeling is where your professors provide you a training on how to face interviews, where you will be allowed to participate in the interview process. So how to handle stressful situations, and covert modeling are being used by using imaginations. So in order to change in behavior, in order to unlearn and relearn new behaviors, according to Albert Bandura or his philosophy of social learning theory, five techniques are used as we discussed now. Well, now let's graduate ourselves to absolute levels of learning.
You want to, move towards excellence or absolute levels of learning, we need to inculcate a quality of purity in our thoughts or attitude. Okay, the first one, as we discussed earlier, the give and take need to transcend towards the give and contribute. So give and take is a mutually expected situation. Well, I give, I expect. If I don't expect as my expectation, if I don't get as my expectation, my emotion changes. If I get more, I'm very happy. If I don't get, I'm sad. So my emotion is not rooted and connected in the now, where I move to psychological reality, either the past or future. So I move away from the existential reality. Now, this purity of thought or attitude, the give and take, has transcended beyond and move to give and contribute. The scarcity has to transcend towards abundance and full. When the emptiness transcends towards fullness, okay, what will happen? You pour some water in a particular pot, when it becomes full, it all flows. It slowly flows out and start giving. And moreover, the attachments to prove I am has to vanish. Proving I am. See, if someone don't respect me, I'm very sad. So what? If someone don't respect you, so what? So there is a tendency for you to prove yourself again and again and again. That is what an attachment or acceptance. That when that stops, you transcend to beyond the external bondages. Something like money, love, acceptance, where the autonomy part within you slowly flourishes up. And the on becoming starts flowing out, on becoming a person. You unfold, you come out. So the core idea that I'm going to tell you is, once you reach at the level of 45 or 50 or maybe 55 or 60, the give and take transactional levels has to transcend to give and contribute. And only that will provide you, help you towards higher levels. See, initial stage, we all talk about I, my ideas, my perspective, I am, I need more. So that is first stage of growth towards the absolute levels. Then we transcend to or grow towards my groups, my nations, or my religion. So it is we. But the next level of transcending ourselves is the one. We are all one. We are transcendental. All ideas and experience converges into one reality. See, the first is the basic level. Second, the we is the graduated level. And the third one, the oneness, is the transcendental. We consider everyone. I see you in me. The moment I see you in me, we are one. I see China in me. I see America in me. Okay, X religion see other religion in me. So then this will reduce conflicts. And only this will become absolute levels of learning, absolute levels of experience. So now what happens here? See, there are three, we consist of information energy, basically. We are at the quantum level, we are information and energy. Well, when I perspective is there, it is my own perspective, the receptivity is limited. Others' perspective, we won't accept them. Others' information, others' energy level. Our energy level is divided because we, divide everything into good and bad. There is inner turbulence, ugly. There is judgment comes, morality comes. Okay, so the next level is we, where the receptivity is more, where the group's perspective is included. expanded, the information is expanded but again limited, energy is again expanded but divided. A group of people in one religion will be grouping together, and our perspective, the information is expanded, but energy is divided, but limited to that particular group of people. The oneness is transcendental, inclusive, and sustainable. See, whenever I say sustainable, it is again we are transcending the race also. Because we all tell that, okay, I can kill anything if I am eating. If I can kill a chicken or I can kill a goat, and I can if I am ready to consume it. But it is not sustainable. Killing is evil. And we are giving a cognitive mediational process. We are cognitively justifying that if it is to eat, I can kill. This is what social Bandhu told in one perspective. So where it is not sustainable. So we are killing all other species. Now, see, we had plenty of water free. We had plenty of air free, air, water, and we had everything for sustenance of the person. We need we do have sunlight that is absolutely free. So sunlight, air, and water is absolutely free. Our true nature is fullness. So if you don't drink water for 17 days or 16 days, you may pass away. If you don't have air for more than 3 minutes, you will pass away. You will die. If you don't have oxygen for next 3 minutes, you will die. See, if you don't have sunlight for a particular time period, you are no more. So you have it all abundance. Now, a time has reached in human civilization world, we need to purchase water, paying money. We need to purchase air also. There are several countries where they are even manufacturing pure air, and you have to pay a price for that. So I don't know when a time will come where sunlight would be artificially produced. Why? Because we have devastated the environment. So sustainability is also a module of inclusion, where we also include other species and nature along with us, where it is non-dual and we become one. So if we don't have this particular thought process, at least at the quantum level, and if we don't accept these realities, there are limitations for learning, for perceiving. So the biggest challenge is what we have observed is a learning curve. What is a learning curve? See, you would have seen, so look at the first paragraph. Okay, the learning is at its peak. Psychologists, they have identified that the learning is at its peak between 11 to 12 and 11 to 12. And again, it goes almost in a stable way between 14 and 17, 18 to 29 years of age, and 30 to 44. But after 44, what happens? The learning comes down. Between 45 and 59, it comes down. After 60, again it comes down. See what happens? This is the research that is did by psychologists across the world. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, then looking down. See, look at that. So there is a problem. Cognitively, what happens is after a particular period, people are not able to learn. So if we need to learn after 45, if we need to learn, we need to have self-awareness. We need to have just to demonstrate excellence, contribute, and serve. When emptiness transforms to fullness, a self unfolds, a just to understand and include the whole, a just to merge with the I, through we, to the whole, a strong thirst to reach excellence and to serve. If we don't have that, what will happen? If we do have that, this will be the result. So we will unlearn and we will start relearning at a particular time, and we will march ahead towards excellence. So please understand, be conscious about it first, be aware about that, and this is the process of learning, unlearning, and relearning. And in order to relearn, you have to forget something that you have already learned, because there is something called interference. If there is overlearning, you form a particular, you reach a particular stage of stagnation. If you keep on learning and you are not forgetting, and if you are not ready to change with respect to new context and new information, you cannot learn anything new because you are fixated. That stage is psychologists call it as fixation. So there may be n number of people sitting across you. Okay, they may be telling their own ideas. After listening to all their ideas, you will tell my idea is right. So the narcissism, the obsession, compulsion, everything slowly start developing. So we are going to discuss about flow of optimal experiences in learning. See, if you want to engage in the learning process, we have to be aware of 4 levels. I'm going to conclude it because we only have 8 minutes more. So then you have a physical environment to learn, your food, your physiological needs, and so on. You have a physical environment. Let us say parents are providing you that. Government is also providing you that. They are also providing free food during lunch session in government schools. The sensation your parents and government is providing. Then you have an emotion to learn, whether you're happy, sad, you have fear, or you're anger. So there are basically 4 types of emotions. So if you're happy to learn, then what limits you to learn? We have to look within what are the thoughts within us that prevents your action to learn. So you have a sensation called as food, physiological need. Then you have an emotion. Then what are your thoughts that you have to think for yourself that prevents or helps you to learn? Please understand that. Now, optimal levels of learning is whenever you learn, okay, you love learning, you're involved in learning, you're committed, you own the learning process, you have enthusiasm, you're charged, and you enjoy, you're fully engaged in learning, where the life energy is flowing through you. This is where there is a congruence between your sensation, emotion, thoughts, and action. You have to ask within what limits me to learn. Whenever I sit in front of learning, what happens? Whenever I thought of getting into doing something, what limits me? So, and you have to find out answers. Perhaps you can get the support of your professor or teacher or a psychologist. I'm talking about adult learners or a counselor. To go deep within and come out. Now, this is the basic. Elements of optimal experience of learning where you need to take care of your sensation, emotion, and there is an interaction between emotion and thoughts that happens in the now, in the present moment. You need to be aware of that and work on your thoughts as well as emotions for an action or behavior that is absolute in nature. Now, if that happens, there are a few options in front of you. Okay. So first, before showing this, I'll show you this. The flow of optimal experiences in learning happens. This is a model. So there are challenges ahead of you, what to learn. Okay, you have your own competence or some total of knowledge, information, and competence with you. You know about it, and you have a challenge. Okay, let us assume that you are in A1. And when the challenges becomes more, you move to A3, where you become more anxious. Okay. So you have a very high level of IQ. You are totally thrilled to learn. You have a very high level of internal motivation or inspiration to learn. Okay. Then what will happen? But the subject to learn is very less. It is something very less. Then you get into boredom or called as A2. Move to A2. Okay. Then you need to be aware of this process. What is happening within you? When you are more anxious, okay, when challenges are more. When challenges are not there, but your skill is very high, you move towards A2. And then you need to be aware. Then you have to switch into F4. Okay. Now, further to explain it, this is the particular representative diagram of that, where in the first level A1, okay, this is first level A1. So it has been divided into 9 different levels. You have apathy, you have worry, you are anxious when challenges are high. Okay, when the abilities are high, you are relaxed. When your abilities otherwise, you are depressed or you are boredom. The flow becomes you're focused and happy on the top right hand side. When flow is at a particular time where the challenges are high as well as your skills are high, where you are competing to yourself. You are competing to oneself, not with others. where the challenges are high, please understand, and the abilities are also high, where you are getting into peak performance levels. You start enjoy your experience. This is the era, this is the particular time where you reach as per this, this learning curve graph, and where you are not comparing yourself with X or Y or Z. You are comparing with yourself, rename yourself, like you reach a stage of mastery where your unique self is coming out to the fullest. Unique self is coming out to the fullest, and this is the highest level of transformational learning, and it's called as flow of experiences in learning. So with this, I think it is time to wind up now. Only 4 minutes now. With this, I'm stopping. I once again thank Parul University Dr. Ajay Trivedi, Dean, then CA Shreya Sharma, Shreya Gupta, professor who moderated the whole session, and Dr. Giselle George, who we worked together to develop this module. I thank above all, I thank all listeners, all learners, who gave us an opportunity to serve all of you, because without learners, we don't exist. So we should definitely thank all learners for giving an opportunity. And I do believe, starting from transactional levels of learning, we have taken to absolute levels of learning, towards behavioral learning, experiential learning, and excellent flow of experiences in learning to the highest level, where we also discussed about the learning curve, how to move ahead, transcend the learning curve, transcend the limitations of learning curve at the age of 44, 45, and move towards the higher levels of learning, just with awareness and mindfulness. So I hope we have covered almost all areas of mindful learning, and I'm ready to discuss with you and answer your questions. Thank you, CA Shreya Gupta, and connect me to the questions now. Connect us to the questions now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So before just giving my vote of thanks, I would like to pass on and get some questions answered from you. So we have a question from a student. Now he says that according to you, like we have different levels of learning. So he says, which level of learning requires the most efforts from our side? Or maybe he means to ask that which level of learning is the most important in any person's life.
Okay. See, the first period is, first answer to your question, first answer is experiential learning is more tough because you go through the real-time pain. Okay. Second, in the learning curve, you reach a stage of inflicting point. It is called as inflicting point, where you grow to a particular level, then you see this learning curve. You grow to a particular level and you feel that I have achieved everything, and that moment you go down. That level is called as inflicting level. And at that level, whatever you do, nothing will work out. So that level, you may even think that, okay, what I need to do? Do I need to commit suicide? Because everything was going as per my plans. I was learning. I was like a creator. I was like a god. And at a particular point of time, everything starts falling down. And whatever I do, whatever you do, may not help you or help us. At that particular point of time, it's called as inflicting point in the learning curve. At that particular point of time, you will lose all hope, and some miracle will happen in your life because you will learn to unlearn yourself. That is the first point in life. And the answer to your question is, cognitive learning is rather easy because you don't go through the transformation process. Experiential learning is tough because the whole 5 senses are going through the transformation process. That is more tougher. And the much tougher part is the inflicting point in your learning curve that happens in your life at a particular period of your life. That is the toughest point where you will find it very difficult. And may God bless all of you at that particular point of time. Everyone is there to support you, take care of you. All your gods, all your parents, friends, all are there to take care of you and support you.
Right. So, yes, thank you, sir. You answered it correctly. But what I mean to ask is that, is it sure that an inflicting point will be reached by all of us? Like, is it sure to happen? And then if it happens, how you think one can overcome that phase? Of course, you said that some miracle will happen. We'll have to unlearn ourselves and relearn. But what a person can do to come out of it positively?
The inflicting point is quite a natural course because it happens to everyone. It's also part of conditioning and the process of evolution, basically. So when I or you start achieving and growing and earning, or you reach a particular point where you got everything, you feel that you're always right and you're always correct. But the context of the situation, the information, everything is changing. Maybe industries are changing, disruption happening. What was a reality yesterday is not a reality today. With respect to that, we are not able to change. And a certain level of experience is required for us to be humble, first point, to understand others, to open up our own mind, to be perceptive. So that is also required. It's a process of spiritual growth also, evolution also, where, at that particular point, either you yourself will help you or some miracle will happen. But at that point, be aware that many suicides are happening now. Don't commit suicide. Don't lose your hope. Try again. Submit and surrender. Surrender whoever you believe in, whoever you pray, whoever the God you believe in. And go through the process of unlearning. And there is a point in which you will start again shooting up. No doubt about it. So that happens usually that happens in a gentleman's or lady's time. Cycle between 37 or 35 to 50 or 55. Between that time, this happens, and almost during that particular point of time, people may be exposed to real-time problems. He may lose a job, or there may be n number of other problems that he may face. So I don't want to name people or experience or compare it because it's all. So that point, wait, be receptive and be ready for change, depending on the external situation variables.
True. So quickly, one more question from Aryan Singh. He's asking, what is the reason of low learning capacity at the age of 59 to 60 or maybe above?
See, psychologically speaking, your cognitive functions will slowly start diminishing. That is one point. Your memory will start diminishing. Your cognitive functions your recall capabilities, everything will start diminishing. But once you become aware, there is a solution for everything. The mindfulness and your meditative practices that you can apply to re-energize your faculties has got a lot of tremendous potential. So that is why the word mindfulness do have a lot of importance. That is one point. Second point is that the need of an individual will slowly start diminishing, because at the age of 55, their children would have started earning. Then they will bring the money in, and he or she also would have made some money, and they may have some balance. So the necessity to learn further, the inspiration process, the third level we call it as third level of inspiration. There are three levels. First level is called as motivation. The second level is third level of inspiration. Is there only then people will be consciously, they will choose to learn. You may watch one of my videos, it is there in my YouTube channel, about the third level of inspiration. So that, if you are able to unlearn your comfort zone and get out of the comfort zone, and if you are ready to learn again, it's a conscious choices. That is where the awareness and mindfulness part comes into being, or plays its own role.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for answering all the questions. So now I would like to propose my vote of thanks. It seems to be a great honor to propose the vote of thanks to all who have helped us in making this webinar a very resounding success. I would like to thank our distinguished speakers, Dr. Asisi Menachari and Dr. Giselle George, for making an excellent presentation and making this webinar a very meaningful and interesting one. I'd also like to thank our Dean, Dr. Ajay Trivedi, for his guidance and moral support. I'm happy to express a vote of thanks to our viewers for their support and motivation. So see you all soon with yet another exciting webinar. Till then, take care and have a nice day. Thank you so much, sir and ma'am.
Thank you so much. Bye. Stop.
in their